I need 9 people to subscribe and help us get to our next goal here, 13,200 subscribers. So if you're looking for a Broncos YouTube channel, this is the spot. Hit that sub button. You are watching the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson. And on today's show, we are going to run through an interesting Bleacher Report article that had one signing suggestion for all 32 teams. So we're going to completely unpack who they had the Broncos signing or who they suggested Denver sign. So without further ado, I introduce you to Connor McGovern for the second time, right? He was Bleacher Report's pick for Denver in their latest article, and of course, he was the 5th-round pick for Denver back in 2016. Now, he played with the Broncos for 3 seasons, then he went to the Big Apple and played for the Jets for 3 seasons. Now, when he came to Denver, he initially started, if you remember, as a right guard, and then they sort of started to transition him over to center. And once he got to the Jets, he was a full-time center for them. And he was a pretty good center for New York over the last 3 seasons. We'll show you all of PFF's grades and whatnot, because when it comes to the boys in the trenches, there's not a ton of stats to really lean on. Now, Connor McGovern last season for the Jets, here are his 2022 PFF grades. He was the top 10 center. He was the 10th best center in football, at least in the eyes of PFF, ranking 10th out of 36, an overall grade, nice 69.6, a run grade of 69.7, a pass, there's a bunch of horny guys over at PFF, 369 grades right there, 4 penalties and 5 sacks allowed for the former Bronco. And I don't know, last year we had a reunion with a former Denver Bronco offensive lineman. Did not go super well, but if it's McGovern this time, hopefully it goes better than Billy Turner. Now, when it comes to McGovern in his entire NFL career, here are his PFF grades from his time in Denver and his time in New York. And you can see that he got a lot better with the Jets. Now, he played more football for them. His rookie season for Denver, he was just A, a rookie, and B, a fill-in at right guard. But with the Jets, an overall grade of 69, run blocking 73. These are all up from what he did in 36 games for the Broncos. Yes, more sacks allowed and more penalties, but he played in 12 more games. He played about 500 more snaps. Probably still a bit higher than you'd like to see, but also factor that into the equation as well. Now, the pinned comment on today's show is this: should Denver sign Connor McGovern? There's 2, by the way. This is the former Broncos one, of course. Give me an S for sign or P for pass. It's the pinned comment. So if YouTube sticks an ad break when I'm done talking, use that to your advantage and get your comments in. Here's the issue, Bleacher Report. Come on in. Denver already signed a center. They signed Kyle Fuller. So if they were going to make a move to sign a veteran center, which they did, it's Kyle Fuller. So I don't really see why they would sign another center and go into training camp with 4 centers on their roster. That seems like a bit of overkill, right? Too many cooks in the kitchen to really figure out who the best center is. Now, if there was a game tomorrow, your starting center would be Lloyd Cushenberry. Kyle Fuller is going to give him a good run for his money in training camp and preseason games to win that starting job, the former Seattle Seahawk. And then there's Luke Wattenberg, the former 5th-round pick out of Washington last year, who we will look at later on. Now, when it comes to Cush, I was optimistic about him bouncing back last season. Did not happen. He was the 32nd best center from PFF. He ultimately finished the year on IR, more or less like a healthy scratch. He was not unhealthy down the stretch. The coaching staff decided, we're just going to shut you down. We got a better combination with you off the field than on the field. His overall grade, 56.2. The former 3rd-round pick out of LSU just unfortunately has not been a good fit for the Broncos. Now, Sean Payton kind of says the opposite of what I'm saying. He's at least a bit more optimistic about it. Here's what he said in an interview. We feel like Cushenberry is certainly going to benefit from these additions, talking about McGlinchey and Powers. We haven't met with any of these guys yet, but we see him as our starting center. I think he's talking about our starting center for the first day of OTAs. Might not be the case come week 1 in September. my prediction is I think Denver, with one of their 5 picks, at least 5 as of right now, I think they will acquire more by moving back from one of their back-to-back third-round picks. They're going to draft an interior offensive lineman, right? They're going to look for the best player available and bring some healthier competition in to the interior offensive line. Because, I mean, no disrespect to Luke Wattenberg. I know he only played in a few games last season, 5th-round pick, just a rookie. It was a disaster of an offensive line, so it's not like the guys standing next to him were giving him all that much help, but he was borderline unplayable. 33.7 overall grade. Only 90 snaps, so you can kind of think of it as like 7 full quarters-ish, but 3 sacks. I mean, it was tough to see at stretches, and which is going to bring us to our next talking point. Russell Wilson was beat up a ton. Now, first things first, Fanatics has an awesome deal for everyone watching right now. If you're just starting to ramp up your Broncos draft coverage and whatnot, well, make sure to get the official 2023 NFL Draft Hat using our exclusive link, chatsports.com/Broncos Draft. That link's in the comments and the description of today's show. I'm a big fan of this year's draft hats. So if you are too and you want your own, use our link to get one now. Here's a crazy idea I just kind of had in the thoughts in the shower this morning. Draft the best interior offensive lineman, right? Just go best player available between left guard to right guard, okay? In day 3, don't use one of your first 2 picks on him because I think you could go edge rusher or corner. But if there's someone really jumping out to you, I won't, lose much sleep over it. And if it's a guard, happens to be a guard because there's only really 2 good centers, Joe Tippmann and John Michael Schmitz, then you move Miners to center, which he did in college a little bit, and you put that new guard at the right guard position. That might be the best starting 5 for Denver, okay? If you can bump Cush out, move Miners to center, and insert your rookie 4th round right guard or something, that might not be a bad combination. At least have that be, maybe the tentative plan going into training camp and see who the best right guard is at camp. Because you have to keep Russell Wilson upright in 2023. ESPN, just out of nowhere, decided to come for the Denver Broncos offensive line's throat when they dropped this graphic about Russell Wilson being the most sacked Broncos quarterback in a single season in team history. 55 sacks last year. Now, we got to remember that Russ is prone to getting sacked a bit more than other quarterbacks because he likes to hold on to the football. He likes to extend plays. So that's sort of the price of doing business. But Russ finishing number 1 despite not even playing all 17 games, that's a bigger red flag in my opinion. So at 55 sacks last year, yeah, the Denver Broncos have clearly recognized a big issue, and they addressed it with McGlinchey and Powers. Is that enough? Maybe it is, honestly. It very well could be, at least for this year. You can only put out so many fires in one off season. And maybe center is something they tackle next year because there's no good options in free agency, and they might not like anyone in the draft, and they only have so many picks, so they're not going to force a pick just because they feel like they have to take a center. But the big question is, can Russell Wilson rebound with a new offensive line in front of him? Last year, 60% completion percentage, pretty much close to a career low. I think he had 59 one of his earlier years in Seattle. 3,500 yards, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. By far the worst touchdown to interception ratio of his career. So what do you guys think? Will Russell Wilson bounce back in 2023 with a new and improved offensive line? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. I definitely think he'll be better. Will he look like the guy that Denver traded heaven and earth for and gave up a lot of money for in a contract extension? Unfortunately, I don't think so. Here are my stat predictions. And again, I hate myself for doing that because I'm just throwing shit at the wall right now and hoping it sticks. But I'm going to go roughly with a 64% completion percentage. These are just projections, just predictions from me. 3,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, right? Sean Payton comes in, he adds 9 more touchdowns, he takes away an interception, and he makes Russell Wilson, not a game manager, but, a quarterback in a run-heavy offense. So I think this could be a rough shell of what to expect out of Russ if things go well next year. Now, a quick super thanks I want to get to right now from Elliot D. Elliot, sorry I missed this a little while ago, but catching up on them right now. So, Elliot, thank you so much for the super thanks. Thank you for supporting the show. We had an awesome super thanks come in on our Knicks channel yesterday. You know who you are, CPJ. So, hey, if you want to support the show, hitting that super thanks icon, it's the heart with the $sign in the middle, goes a long way. A little tip in the jar to, try and keep the lights on and get more studio space here at Chat Sports. That is it for today's show. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and subscribe. Help us grow this channel, and we can get you guys more Broncos content.